Hello, I am doing a new case today. I am going to be covering the Claremont serial killings. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, it's an Australian case and it is at trial right now. We're on day 3 of the trial of this man here, whose name is Bradley Edwards, who after 23 years was caught for the serial killings of Sarah Spiers, Ciara, Glennon and Jane Rimmer. So we're on day 3 at the moment, and I thought we would just go through the crime a little bit, and then I've got a couple of astrological things to show you that are interesting. But I wanted to get people familiar with the case because it is a long time in coming, and I know a lot of my viewers are American, so I would like to show you where this is happening. Now, this is a sketch of the case, and here are the girls, Ciara, Glennon, Jane Rimmer and Sarah Spiers. Now, for my American viewers, I'll get that up there because that's silly, sorry, I thought I was prepared. Australia's like this, there's some more over here, obviously. Perth's here and Fremantle's just here. Between the two is Claremont, it's near Cottesloe, Claremont, and that is where the killings were, hence the name, the Claremont serial killer. So he operated here in this, the most isolated city in the world, Perth, and he got away with it for a long time, and he was hiding in plain sight, just like somebody else I know, the Delphi killer. These are the victims. Sarah Spiers was never found. Her body was never found. She was last seen by a friend of hers at Club Bayview in Claremont in the early hours of the 27th of January 1996. We found out on day 1 of the trial that she called a taxi at 6 minutes past 2 in the morning. The taxi arrived on Eric Street, which is where it was, 3 minutes later, and she wasn't there. Some people that lived nearby in Mosman Park heard screams at the same time. So there's some witnesses to a scream and her being taken within 3 minutes from her walk from Club Bayview. The next girl at the time was Ciara Glennon. And after a night out around the same place, she was walking along Stirling Highway in Claremont. She was last seen at about 12:15 at night. She was found about 55 kilometres south of Perth, so around here. And the next, incidentally, Jane Rimmer was found about 55 kilometres north of, Claremont. So both were very far apart, which leads me to believe that perhaps going 50 to 55 kilometres inland may be where Sarah may be buried, but I'll go into that later. Now, when the evidence has now come out that when Ciara was found, she had no shoes, no handbag, no personal belongings, so there were souvenirs taken. She was mortally wounded to the neck. She had defense wounds on her arms. Her upper body was cut. She had deep cuts with sawing motion. It would have been just awful. But she tried to defend herself as much as humanly possible. Jane Rimmer was also on Bayview Terrace in Claremont. She decided to not get a taxi home with her friends and stay a little bit longer and have a bit more fun. She was seen on CCTV at 12:10, and within 30 seconds she was gone. Now, Jane Rimmer was found, as I said, 55 kilometres roughly south of where she was last seen. Jane Rimmer, we've learned in the trial as well, Jane Rimmer was found posed, as was Ciara Glennon, but they were mirroring each other in their pose. They were both buried under some bushes, just light bushes. There was no real effort to bury them. They both died in the same manner with knife wounds and sawing motion wounds. And there was actually a knife that belonged to the alleged suspect near the body of Jane Rimmer when she was found. So here is Bradley Edwards now. At the time he would have been about 26, I think, 26, 27, so he was a younger man. He was married at the time, and apparently it's come out in the trial that before each and every murder or attack, and he's also come out and said that he's attacked other women, there was actually a stressor, and that was his wife. He broke up with his wife because she was having an affair. Then he killed Sarah Spiers. In May of '96, he learnt his wife was pregnant to another man, and then in June he killed Jane Rimmer. And so it shows they're talking about his pattern in life and how this went about, the stresses that led to him going on this killing spree, which doesn't mean anything really, but it's more interesting more than anything. In December of 2016, he was arrested from the house he lived in Kewdale, and it took until this week, 22nd of November, to begin the trial, and it's going to be a 6-month trial. Now, the way that he got the girls into his vehicle was he was a communications worker. He worked for Telstra. Now, when you work for a company like that, you get given a vehicle, and there's hundreds of them everywhere. I've lived in WA, and I know the vehicles. I believe that he's gone up to them and they've trusted him because he looks like he works for Telstra, and there's just a natural trust in somebody that has a vehicle that's a company name and well known like it is. He wasn't the first suspect though. This man here, Lance Williams, was actually a suspect for years and years and years, and unfortunately and really sadly it ruined his life, and he died from cancer. So Lance Williams was their only other suspect, until they found out through another attack and some evidence. Now I can actually show you the evidence that led to the arrest, as well as a Sprite bottle that was found. That's what they actually got his evidence on. But this is a kimono that was linked between a prior sexual assault, a rape, and attack, which also had, it was the same person that had DNA under Ciara Glennon's fingernails. So this kimono was very key evidence in bringing Bradley Edwards to trial. He allegedly killed him. I have to say that because he's pled not guilty. There's a lot of evidence showing that it looks like he is guilty, but allegedly he didn't do anything. Here he is again, just the average Joe Blow, getting on with life as they all are. The nice guy next door, wouldn't hurt a fly. You've heard it all before. Until this happened, you could leave your doors open and nobody would do anything. That's true. Well, I don't know if that's really true, but it scared the living daylights out of everybody. Nobody knew who it was. It could have been a taxi driver, a police officer. Someone was on the hunt, and it was just this dude from next door, and he just happily moved on with his life for 20 odd years until he got caught. All the while these poor girls and their families have suffered. So I'm going to do a tiny little bit on a couple of charts, nothing too much, but that's the layout of the case. I'll talk about, every couple of days we'll talk about new evidence that's come up, and then I'll go into some more astrology for those that are more interested in that. Cool. See. Okay, this is the chart for 2:06 a.m. on the 27th of January 1996, where it's alleged that Edwards took Sarah Spiers and killed her. Now, so it's the event chart, and very quickly, I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, can't move it. Why can't we move it? There we go. So, sorry, as you'll see here, we have Gemini on the DC. That's the open enemies, Gemini. So that's a younger man. At the time, it was a younger man. The ruler of Gemini is Mercury. It always is. Mercury is the general ruler of communications and Telstra, and everything this guy did was related to Mercury. So he fully represented the open enemy in the very first chart, taking Sarah Spiers. There's a whole lot more as well, but I'll leave that one at that. We'll get back to these at a different time. Now, this is Jane Rimmer when he took her. Go in, I can't go in there. Now we'll see that Virgo, which is the other ruler of Mercury, is on the 7th house of the open enemy. So we go to Mercury because that rules Virgo and Gemini. And now Mercury is sitting in the 3rd house where it naturally likes to sit, conjunct Mars, so there's some extra aggression there, but also some extra confidence. It's in its own house. The end of the matter, the sun is shining on Gemini there. It's all quite, you know, it's time that he developed more confidence at this point in time. It was his 2nd kill, so he knew a little bit more. It's like the first time it was in the 2nd house, maybe he was a bit concerned he got caught. The 3rd time, it's in the house of the communications, the car, everything that he did was right here. But also the interesting thing is now the end of the matter, the IC, the sun and the part of fortune are shining really brightly on it, and it is nearly the same degree as the prior one when Sarah Spiers went missing of the DC. So see, we have Gemini. So the end of the matter for Jane Rimmer is the open enemy for Sarah Spiers. So it's all very Gemini linked, and as I said, he really fitted into that Gemini scenario. Interestingly, actually, Sarah Spiers' chart, this one here, the end of the matter is 0 Pisces, which does indicate to me that it's, well, it sort of shows why she wasn't found. And perhaps it's possible that because it was the first time, allegedly, that he'd killed somebody, maybe she was put in water. So maybe she was harder to find. It's something to think about when I go further into it. So that's just quickly, we can see from the initial charts, way back then, I can't get the date, way back then that Gemini would have given us some indication. So work-wise, age-wise, we could have seen that he worked for a telecommunications company. He was between the age of this and that. He was going around in a car. And we can see that as well by 3rd house ruler being Saturn here in the 4th house, which is the end of the matter. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of things in these charts that show us that we could have got a profile, but pinning him down would have been so hard. It took the police 20 odd years, and half the time they got it wrong anyway. So, but admittedly, the FBI and everybody worked on it, and they did get him, allegedly. So yeah, so that's that. We will carry on with more days of what happens on this trail as it happens. So, you know, in a few days' time, you'll see some more. Okay, see you later, guys. Take it easy. Bye.